Let's make HVAC part 3 for example number 2. We're going to find out the ventilation air calculations for Jeff's beverage. We were working on specialty flooring before, so that's why that's open. I'm going to close that. I'm going to save it. And I'm going to close it. But we're going to use that as our starting point because they're very similar spaces, as it turns out. Let's go then to specialty flooring. We copy the entire HVAC folder, copy it here, go back to my projects, and I'll paste it into Just Beverage. I did it in advance, but because the file that you save is more recent than the one that's there, I'm just going to replace it, put it in there. I'll open up Just Beverage. There'll be an HVAC folder there, and there'll be some selections, HP 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to leave those there because actually it turns out that I will generate heat pump 1, heat pump 2, heat pump 3, and I can just override them once I generate that. There's a temporary file in that folder that it creates every time you're working on it. So I'm going to open that. I'm going to open that file. I'm going to save it. It does nothing, and then I'm going to close it, and hopefully this temporary file goes away. Because I want to. Oh, let's try to delete it because this is not called specialty flooring. All right, there it goes. Gone away. Again, we're not in specialty flooring. We're in Just Beverage. I'm just going to be lazy and copy this here and then paste it here. Just Beverage. Boom. Let's open it up. First thing we'll have to do is change the name inside of it. And there's a temporary file I was talking about. Now it's a Jeff's Beverage, and it has some symbols in front of it. That's how I know it's a temporary file. I think it does save the undos and redos. There's Jeff's Beverage. I'm going to zoom to 100% here. 100%. And then I'm going to push it all the way to the right. It still says specialty flooring, so if I were to paste what I had copied, it'll do in lowercase. And I don't know how to change lowercase to uppercase in Excel. I think there's a way, but I'll just type it once. Yeah. Look at what I did. I'm not a typer, so I have to look at the keyboard as I'm typing, and I only find out I made a mistake after I look up. All my friends, a lot of my friends in high school took typing, but it was gay. If I'm allowed to say that. Anyways, I thought I'd be so important I'd have a secretary to type everything for me. Little did I know, right? Just Beverage. Now I can copy it here. And I'm going to have two tables because I'm going to treat the liquor side of the system going. So, we worked on this table before. I've tweaked it a little bit, and we'll go over that. But essentially, when we talk about this space, we have some offices in the liquor store. We have a conference room. We have a break room. We have several water closets. I think I counted 6. I don't know. There's a whole necessarily. There's a showroom. It's not a showroom. It's a sales area. So it's very similar. This is going to be very simple. Just Beverage ventilation air calculations, building 1. Let's put a parenthesis here. Call it the beer side. So we're not confused. Just Beverage ventilation air calculations, building 2. Let's call that. Right. Now we know what's what. And hello Excel lesson here. If you have something to write like the heading here, I combine all these cells into one main cell. To make it look neat, I should probably center this, and now it looks a little better. So this whereas row 17 has multiple cells, you have the ability in Excel to combine cells. So if for some reason I have something long to write here, and I did that here for total occupancy, I combined these two cells, cell C and cell D. So I could combine this. I think you highlight it, you right click it, and maybe the option shows up here. It does not. Um, this is obviously not part of what we're trying to learn here, but I think merge cells. So there we go, merge and center. Two cells became one right here. Don't do that. That's not necessary. So let's go back here. Let's do building 2 first because it's so easy. It's just the sales floor. Okay. But when we look here, Jeff's, I'm sorry, specialty flooring. Actually, the second building didn't have a sales floor. It's just a little office for the warehouse guy. So let's copy this sales floor here from the first building, and let's paste it here. So I click on the entire row number 17, and when I insert the copied cells, it's just going to put them right above my selection, and it's going to push everything down. So where my table ended on row 22, now it's going to end on row 23. Insert copied cells. Notice I went row 23. Well, it's not a showroom because it's not a furniture store. I'm going to call it sales 3. And why it's 3 is because I split the liquor store sales area into 2. Remember, one is going to have a 20-foot ceiling, and one's going to be underneath the second floor conference room / break area. But I think we're done almost with the second building. For the sake of uniformity, I'm going to center justify this. So it looks, so this looks like that. You learned that I like symmetry and things to look the same and all that. Back to business. Cells number 3. It's in the code very quickly. Just as a reminder, let's find that area. I think retail stores, cells. This is the International Mechanical Code internet version. They want you to buy, so they don't let you highlight or copy anything out of here. All you can do is look at it. It's $300 for this book, which is a ripoff. The reason they have to give it to you for free is because it's the law. So if it's law, they can't make you pay for it. So they give it to you in some sort of way that is virtually difficult to work with. Not too cheap to spend the $300 on the International Mechanical Code, another $300 on the International Plumbing Code, another $300 on the National Electric Code, and then another $300 for International Building Code, another $300 for the International Residential Code. Somebody comes up with these codes, and then everybody adopts them, and all of a sudden they're selling you books for $300. When by law they're supposed to give them to you for free if they're adopted. Off my soapbox I go. It's a sales area, 15 people per 1,000 square feet, 7.5 CFM per person, and 0.12 CFM per square feet. And I didn't mention this in the previous example, but the last column is for exhaust. Obviously, there's no exhaust in the sales area. Bathrooms, kitchens, places where there's combustion, maybe a garage repair where they repair cars and they actually run them. The exhaust of the vehicle has to be exhausted, and maybe a repair shop where they paint, or maybe what else? For example, a cabinet shop where they paint cabinets and things like that require exhaust. But in our case, 15 people per square 1,000 square feet, 7.5 CFM per person, and 0.12 CFM per feet. That should already be populated in our spreadsheet because we copied a sales area. So here we go. Sales 15 people per 1,000 square foot. That's correct. Our area, let's populate that. It's 4,223 feet. We'll tap to move to the right. It calculates the occupancy. I kind of glossed over the formula here. The formula multiplies uh, the occupancy load cell, which is C17, and the area. So there's people, it's area and people per area, unit area, and it gives us something. And the formula we use round up. So whatever this result is, rounds it up. Round up the product of the area and the occupancy load. If those numbers are zero, just spit out a zero. And that's what that is. I recommend learning formulas in Excel because they can be pretty handy. You can make it do anything you want. Um, there's if functions. If you do this, then it does that. Or you can just multiply, or you can just add. Sum's not right here because we have 64 people plus 2. So this sum is not right because it starts here. So I'm going to fix it and start there. I hit enter. It's 66 people. And it did that because I added a cell. If you recall, I inserted a cell from here. And so the formula was only adding these 4 cells, but now is adding these 5 cells. Actually, there's 6 cells, but this one's always blank, at least in this column. And we're done. So this formula probably, and I was right, it only because I added this row, it's only adding down in here. So I'm going to take it up a little bit, and it adds up to 743. However, we don't have a, and in the liquor place, we only have the liquor area, so we don't have a sales. I mean, office 3. I'm going to delete that, and I can just delete them all together. There's no water closet 3 storage or warehouse. So because we're treating that building as a separate entity. Let me go back to show what we're talking about. We're just talking about Unit B right there. Unit B. That's it. Okay. There's nothing in it but sales floor. I guess if you're buying liquor, you're not going to the bathroom. You have to go next door and use the bathroom. This is what happens when non-architects design your building, and that's why you have an architect design your building. Trust me. And I'm not an architect, so I'm not trying to generate business for myself. Anyway, so let's delete these 3 rows. Everything shifts up, and this thing freaked out. Well, because the transfer allowed would take out bathrooms. So we're not exhausting anything. So this is 0. There's no bathrooms here. We're exhausting. So we're allowed to transfer 0. So we need 493 CFM of outside air. And that's it. And you know what? Actually, it's not. This formula isn't right because I divided it by 2. If we go by the book, it's actually 987 CFM of outside air. If we go by the book, because the book says, if you multiply 64 people times 7.5 and 4,223 times 0.12, you'll get this number. So that's what that formula means. And it doesn't round up because they're round numbers. So I don't have to round it up like I did with people. I round up people. For offices, if you recall, 5 people per 1,000 square feet, or essentially 200 square feet per person. So a person can occupy up to 200 square feet. But once you exceed that, then you can squeeze another person in. So 201 square feet means 2 people, all the way up to 400 square feet. And that's why that number is rounded, but this one isn't. Anyways, back to the divided by 2. And that's why I have an asterisk here. And the asterisk means it's short-term occupancy. There's some exception in the code. And it's a judgment call. There's an exception in the code that you can cut the outside air in half if you feel that the occupancy is going to be shortened or short occupancy. You feel I'm going to have 64 people in here, which I may have 64 people in here, but they're not going to be in here 8 hours a day as if this place was an office. This is done for places like churches. Think about a church. 95% of the time, There's 5 people there, just the people who work at the church. And on Sunday, for 6 hours on Sunday, the place is going to have 400 people in there. But it's a short-term occupancy. The International Mechanical Code copies this table, the minimum ventilation rates from ASHRAE 62. ASHRAE is the American Society of Heating and Refrigeration and Air Conditioning Engineers. So this table is borrowed from some other place, and the other place gives you some exceptions. So let's look at that document real quick. ASHRAE standard 62.1. ASHRAE standard 62.1 is a document that talks about ventilation for acceptable indoor air quality. Now, where I was talking about 6262. And let's see what 6262 says. And here's the same table. Let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of that, and let's zoom in a little bit. Same table, correctional facilities, educational facilities. More on the table. And I struggled on the last project trying to find that common area, and I think I saw it, but it wasn't called common area. It was like mall common areas, where it's 40 people per 1,000 square feet, and that's how I found it, because I started looking for the 40. The outdoor rate is 7.5 CFM per person, and then 0.06 CFM per square foot for common areas. I don't know why I left the mall part out. It also gives it to you in international units, liters per second per person, and liters per second per square meter. For those people who like to use international units. We in America are stubborn, and we created our own system, and we stick to it, even though the rest of the world likes something else. Off my soapbox again. Short-term conditions, where it is known that a peak occupancy will be of short duration. Ventilation will be varied or interrupted for a short period of time, or both. The design shall be permitted to be based on the average conditions over a time period determined by equation, blah, blah, blah. When you run this equation, basically, you're able to cut. This is the time period, basically 50% of the time. By the time you run all that, you're able to cut your ventilation rate in half. Judgment call. What constitutes short-term conditions? It is my judgment that there will not be 64 people in the liquor store for an extended period of time. 3 hours. Just like a church, let's say. Right? What's the chances there's going to be 75 people every day, in a liquor store? Come Friday afternoon, when everybody gets off work and they're getting their booze for the weekend, perhaps, but that's short duration, 5 to 7, right? Just like the gymnasium. People go out right after work or early in the morning, but at 10 a.m. the place isn't fully packed. Short duration. And that's it. So that's an example right here. I'm going to do this off camera for the first side. Essentially, I'm going to have 2 offices. I'm going to have a conference room. I'm going to have a break room. I'm going to have, I think, what did I say? 6 water closets. There's no hallway, but there's 2 sales areas, which will be sales 1 at 3373, and right there I already have the formula divided by 2. This one I divided by 2 before, but I didn't, so I'm just going to copy this formula here, paste it here, and what it does, Excel is smart that even though this formula talks about these cells here, when I copy this formula is going to talk about the same cells on relative to it. So 493 CFM about that. That's what we need. So over here, cells 1, let's copy that. And I can copy it above it. So I can insert the copied cells right above it. and I won't be able to tell the difference because there'll be two cells one. So it pushed the original one down a little bit, push it down, and then I can change it to cells two. For the purpose of ventilation air, I could have just stuck with one, but because eventually I'm going to split the two spaces, figure out the air conditioning load, then I'll split it here. I hit enter. The occupancy is going to change to a third of 51, essentially, and this number will drop to something less than 394. So I hit enter, and a third of 51 is 17, so we round it up, and there we go. The transfer loud is weird. I don't know why it picked the hallway. Weird. So really, it's not the hallway. It's H8, right? There we go. It's adding these two cells. The blue one is that one. The red one is that one. I'm gonna have four more bathrooms, and we'll deal with that later. But for the purposes of this video, I'm gonna stop here. I think we've beat this dead horse to death enough. Part 3, example number 2.